good afternoon to all our listeners and viewers of the NDC Heartbeat podcast. Happy to have all of you on today, those who are on WeFM, Vibes FM, Spice Capital Radio, and now Talk Grenada. Also, those who are on the NDC Facebook platform, we extend a very warm welcome to you. It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon in Grenada. Well, for today's program, we're going to be chatting with the Honorable Ron Redhead, and we also will be chatting with other guests. So before we get into this, I have a few announcements. So let me just get right into the announcements. Let's see here. Okay, first of all, I'd like to share with you that the NDC chapter in New York will be celebrating 36 years, and there'll be an awards fundraising cocktail reception that will take place on Saturday 7th October from 9 p.m. And the location is the Palace Hall, 713 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. If you need any tickets, you can call 347-432-6963 or 347-722-5188. That's the National Democratic Congress 36th anniversary being celebrated in New York with the New York chapter. Thereafter, let's see here now, then there will be a town hall, NDC New York chapter calling all Grenadians to be at the town hall meeting Sunday, October the 8th. It will be held at the American Legion Hall, 1130 East 92nd Street, Brooklyn, New York. And that starts at 4:30 p.m., ends at about 8:30. In attendance would be the Honorable Andy Williams, the General Secretary of the party, Mr. Larry Barry, and your humble servant. Then, let me see what else we have here. A very important note from the Honorable David Andrew. He has a change of a day of meeting his constituents. Instead of Wednesdays, it's going to be Thursdays, starting from Thursday coming. And, of course, you know his location. It's at the branch office is on Canal Road in Grenville behind the Ariza Credit Union building. So he apologizes for any inconvenience which his constituents may suffer as a result of this. But remember, it's on Thursdays now instead of Wednesdays. So we'll just take a short break right now and get right back to you in a moment. Welcome back to the NDC Heartbeat. It's, as I said, it's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and we have in studio is the Honorable Ron Redhead, Minister responsible for sports, culture, and youth. And indeed, he's a youth. The first Minister of Youth.
In a long time.
In a long time, yes, indeed. Well, welcome again to Heartbeat. It's always good to have you.
It's a pleasure, Terry, and certainly welcome to all of the listeners, both home and abroad, and looking forward to our discussions.
Fantastic, fantastic. I know a lot has been happening in your ministry. You recently had a trip abroad. I mean, if you can probably just update our listeners as to how that went, and all the exciting stuff happening in your ministry.
Definitely. So at South Korea, which was the destination for the trip, we were able to sign on to World Peace. It is an international organization, non-governmental organization, pushing to have peace throughout the world. And peace, not just in an abstract sense, but it's very clear. We do not want wars. And as a small developing nation, we see the ravaging impact that wars is having on our country's economy, just name it, with dealing with instances of the inflation coming out of COVID and having to deal with this new externality. It is not something that we should promote. And so as we chart our way forward as a small island developing state, the question of peace and maintaining that global peace is very critical. So we went and we signed on to that.
Right. So that was, in fact, world leaders participating,
world
or
leaders,
representatives?
World leaders. So we had a number close to about well over 50 world leaders participating in that event. And it brought together people from all walks of life as well, ordinary people coming to support the initiative. So as I mentioned, it's a global, or rather international, non-governmental organization seeking peace throughout the world.
Okay, so they basically took care of all your travel expenses.
They took care of all travel expenses. Grenada didn't have to pay anything.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. So tell us about your ministry. I see that you kind of are paying some close attention to the National Stadium now, which has been in serious need of maintenance, upgrades, repairs. Tell us what's happening there.
Right. Well, just to give you a brief, we are in advanced stages for both the cricket stadium and the Kirani James Athletic Stadium for the renovation. The Kirani James Athletic Stadium is going to be relaying the track in preparation for Carifta, and certainly in time before we have Intercall this year, next year, sorry. The cricket stadium, as you know, is in dire need of some repairs, and we will be getting that through the kind generosity of the People's Republic of China. So we have done everything necessary up to this point, and we are waiting in the coming weeks definitely to get the final update and to make pronouncements as government.
Now, the upgrades would include repainting, removing a lot of the rust that I see on some of the metal structures, etc.
Well, it's way more than that, especially for the cricket stadium.
Yeah.
We will be taking off the roofs, doing a number of deep maintenance, because as you know, there was no clear maintenance plan. And one of the things that we discussed with the ambassador to China is that we need to have our locals understand how to do the maintenance so that we could put our own program in place and do not have to exploit their generosity in giving us the assistance to refurbish the stadium every single time. And so they agreed to that. They also agreed to, for the first time, getting the manuals for the stadium in English. So there are a number of things that is going to be done. What we will do is to start it deliberately next year, because we have already bid for the international cricket match, England tour of the West Indies in December, T20 matches. So that will be held in December, around the 14th to the 16th, thereabout, stand to be corrected. And we have also the American 50 tournament that is going to be played in short order. So I think everything is a go. I would be meeting with the Stadium Authority sometime this upcoming week to discuss the final details, and then we'll take it from there. As I said, the athletic stadium is just a track, and we have done everything there, and it's just awaiting the final information to make pronouncements as government.
All right. What is the American 50? You care to
All right, yeah,
expound
so
on
I could
this, please?
elaborate. This is going to be something, it's for the first time being brought to the Caribbean. As you know, government believes in sports tourism as an actual deliberate policy in sports, trying to twin that whole question of the tourism sector, which is performing well, with our sporting sector so that it can give it the boost that it requires. So athletes or cricketers who are over 50 are going to be coming to
Oh, so you're
Grenada.
talking to me then?
I ain't sure. Yeah, but that's the intention. So there is a proprietor of the game. The good thing coming out of this scheme is that they are going to make a donation, significant donation to Grenada with cricket gears. So we were able to negotiate all of that, and we were happy as the Department of Sports to facilitate this scheme because it will bring benefits not just from a tourism or sport tourism standpoint, but to the athletes themselves.
Okay, great. Well, it's good of you to pop into the Heartbeat and share what's happening. Do you have any closing comments you wish to part with?
Well, I would say that as the budget is upcoming, I want to encourage all Grenadians to please listen to the finance minister when he articulates budget coming up very soon. Government is keen on rolling out its transformative agenda in the areas of sports, tourism, healthcare, you name it. And so we are doing all that it takes to meet with stakeholders. We have completed the rounds from the Ministry of Finance in terms of budget consultations, and we are satisfied as a government that we will get the necessary steps at this point that we need to continue to move the country forward.
Great, wonderful indeed. Well, I think the entire nation will look forward to this budget. This will be
Definitely.
your first budget.
Definitely. First real budget.
Yeah, well, yeah, first real budget. That's correct. Well, thank you very much for popping in to the Heartbeat.
It's a pleasure.
I highly appreciate it, and feel free to do it anytime. You don't even have to
No
give
problem.
notice.
Lord of mercy. No problem. I will. Thanks for returning.
Alrighty, thank
Nice,
you
nice.
too.
Yes, man.
Okay, well, we'll be back in a short while. We'll be chatting with Dr. Curlin Gilchrist and the Minister responsible for Labor. She's also the Attorney General, the Honorable Claudette Joseph. Back in a moment.
We are seriously pursuing the national health insurance because we genuinely feel, particularly for major medical issues, which oftentimes has the potential to bankrupt a person, if we have insurance, you at least are guaranteed that you have the ability to pay for most, if not all, of the expense associated with that. Two, we are significantly looking to beef up scholarships and so on that are available to our nurses and other healthcare professionals. As you're aware, we also continue to look for scholarships opportunities for persons to study medicine and so on. But I think the big strategic one is the new hospital. And we view the new hospital from a revenue generating concept. We want to have a state-of-the-art hospital that allows the doctors at SGU to do their rotations here. If that happens, that means they spend 2 additional years here. That helps to boost the economy from a tourism perspective, but it also gives almost immediately our public access to a lot more doctors, even if they're trainee doctors, than otherwise would have obtained. I think two, we specifically want to target health and medical tourism because we think that feeds directly into our tourism brand and what we want to do. And if we do so, it means then that the revenue generated from this can help to underwrite the cost of running the hospital. And if we do medical tourism, then the medical tourism must be first class and world standards, which then means all public gets the opportunity to have first class medical attention. Three, our primary healthcare system, and make sure that healthcare services are available in our communities and that it's heavily focused on preventative healthcare, making sure people understand nutrition, make sure they eat right, make sure they exercise, make sure they take some of the primary healthcare issues like dental care seriously, starting from the schools and so on. So those are some of the things that we are working on. We are currently working with one doctor who's an SGU alumni who wants to open an OBGYN clinic here. He's made significant progress in that in terms of the site, in terms of the physical work on the clinic as well. We are currently reviewing the MOU to get that going.
The government of Grenada remains committed to enhancing the livelihoods of all our people.
Welcome back to all our listeners and viewers of the NDC Heartbeat podcast. Those who are WFM, those who are on Vibes FM, Spice Capital Radio, Talk Grenada, and indeed those who are on the NDC Facebook page. We welcome you to yet another Heartbeat. And we're happy to have in studio this afternoon Dr. Curlin Gilchrist and the Attorney General, Minister responsible for Labor, the Honorable Claudette Joseph. We are going to be talking wages, but Minister, I want to ask you later on if we can talk about the accomplishment with respect to Kowanabe. That has been maybe a matter that we can't stop talking about. The people need to understand the entire transaction that went down and some of the details and all the negotiations in the background. But first of all, let me go to Dr. Curlin Gilchrist. Wages. You would not believe this has been such a hot topic. But you know what people are saying? They want more. I say, well, this is a start.
Yeah, it's only a start, and Terry, it's a beautiful day to talk about wages.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a start, and it's a conversation that started since even before election. Yeah, I mean, NDC have been looking at that as one of the measures that can bring benefit and raise people's ability to earn a decent living.
Yep.
So the conversation continues, and I'm very interested. I myself, as a member of the committee, have been having tremendous feedback from employers. Those who we have not met the first round, of consultations, they are now speaking to us, and more so in getting an explanation of where their workers fit, the employees fit, because we have kind of set categories, right? And in the final recommendation, we may be detailing it a little bit more, but they are very enthusiastic, and employers are expressing an attitude of and a willingness to comply with the regulation. So they want to know how the employees fit in, and so I'm very encouraged by it. I know employees are asking for more, but we are constrained because our business expense, right?
Yep.
And we don't want business to unduly affected, in terms of the ability to make a margin.
Yeah.
So we are taking it easy, and we are asking workers to be productive, and next 3 years time we will have another review,
Right.
and look at things. But we are really hoping that with this start, that is laid a platform for increased productivity in this country. And workers will feel that they are getting a just wage for the effort. So we are encouraged by it.
Great.
And I know the minister will be making pronouncement later on, maybe in a budget. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But the employers are waiting for it, they're anxious for it.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
When was the last increase in wages
Yeah,
taking place?
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
That was under the NDC.
Yeah, it seems as though it's time to the NDC to bring benefits to people. But this is important.
Yeah.
It's very, very important. So and I'm hoping that under the NDC government, we will see continuous reviews and looking at it. So this is not just a one-off.
Right.
Right? I think the committees are appointed for 3 years. So we have time to look at other issues affecting wages,
Right.
and to bring it to the attention for the government to do what it takes to improve the ability of people to earn a decent living.
Yeah. I mean, the folks who are impacted in a very positive way, and I really feel happy for them. Those who $700-800 a month working in stores and shops and that sort of thing. That is.
Yes, that's the area that is is of interest. At that end of the industry, 800, 900. So I've been having conversation with those group of people, and saying, look, we need to get to 12. And they understand that. We don't anticipate any serious fallout in terms of employers sending people home, because they have to provide a service.
Yep.
You see, and especially when you're in a competitive environment, they got to find other ways of increasing competitiveness, and they need the workers to provide the service. So we don't anticipate any negative fallout, but what we are doing by adopting this minimum wage adjustment is to resetting the labor market.
Right.
Yeah, because of course, wages are determined by demand and supply and so on. And there are industries, and I'm sure the minister did mention it before, that are not really affected because they're high wage, like constructions, for example. And I want to touch on the transportation.
Right.
Yeah, because I heard certain remarks,
Okay.
and
All right.
what we have done is not to interfere with the prevailing market, but to
Okay.
legitimize the baseline.
All
Yeah,
right.
for
Well,
example, I'll give an example. In speaking to all the busmen, we spoke to all of them, and we had asked, for example, what are the prevailing wages for conductors and bus drivers, and if we take the worst performing route, right, in terms of national transportation, is a conductor gets $60 a day. That's the worst performing route.
yep.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
our
Well,
benchmark would not affect because we are conscious about the other issues regarding the transportation
all
in terms
right.
of the margin and so on. So we didn't want to interfere with that. But to legitimize, right, the baseline where you can pay somebody a decent wage. So that area we do not anticipate, and I hope people would not try to twist it around. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, be back with you in a moment. I
Yeah.
was allowing the minister to rest her throat because she's not 100% feeling so great, but she was able to come out.
Okay.
That's the important part of it. Question for you, Minister. How does the business community feel about this wage increase? Because, as Dr. Gilchrist mentioned, it's going to impact them, but they seem to be okay with it. Is there some special concessions being offered to the business community so that they embrace this increase in wages wholeheartedly?
No, well, thank you, Terry, for having me on the Heartbeat. And let me just say good afternoon to all of the viewers and listeners on the program. It's always good to be here. And let me take this opportunity to publicly thank Dr. Gilchrist and the other members of the Wages Advisory Committee who so readily acceded to my request to serve in this regard. And we look forward to working together as we generally work together to improve the lives of all Canadians.
Right.
To specifically answer your question, no, there's no quid pro quo going on. The law requires a review of the minimum wages every 3 years. And as listeners heard, the last review was in 2011. So somewhere in between, government was not looking after the interests of workers, particularly the workers in these categories that those who were in government before like to refer to as vulnerable. The workers who are covered by the minimum wages order. They were not looking after their interests, so they missed literally 4 cycles of review.
So there's a lot of catching up
So
to
there's a
do.
lot of catching up that should happen every 3 years. The last one was in 2011, so it should have happened in
14, 15.
14, 17,
Yeah.
20, 22. It didn't happen, right? So one of the first things we did on assuming office, in fact, about 8 weeks after assuming office, was to constitute the Wages Advisory Committee. Employers and employees alike embrace this move. And as the Wages Advisory Committee have reported, they have only received positive feedback, positive interactions, and positive reactions from employers. And in most cases, it's not really, in fact, in all of the categories, it's not really so much increase as adjustment, because there should have been incremental
Right.
increases over the last 12 or so years.
So,
that didn't happen.
not
So
cutting you, but have you gone beyond what the unions have been able to negotiate? And in some cases, there were no union representation at all.
Well, in the case of the minimum wages order, that order really covers people who are not unionized.
Not unionized,
right?
okay.
These are people. So in a real sense, they are vulnerable on several levels.
Right.
They are vulnerable in that they tend to occupy the more low-paid
The low
jobs in
wages,
some,
yeah.
not in all instances, but in some cases covered under the minimum wages order. Agricultural workers, domestics, clerical assistants, security guards, people who tend to attract wages in the lower spectrum. And also, because of the nature of these industries, almost all of them are not unionized.
Right.
So, whereas other categories of workers have the unions as collective bargaining agents to lobby for them for
Right.
wages and fringe benefits, some categories of workers do not have that luxury. And that is why the law steps in to provide for them and to allow for their wages to be
Okay.
reviewed every 3
So the
years.
law is like the protective
Protector
mechanism,
of those who are
like
not
the unions,
union, exactly.
but it hasn't been working.
It hasn't been working because I can't pass on the opportunity to point out that those who proclaim constantly their love and care for our people,
Yeah.
and particularly our vulnerable people, have not been demonstrating that love and care
Yep.
because they have not sought to have their wages reviewed
Right.
in 12 years
Now this
when it
is
should be
this
done
is
every 3
this
years.
is really fundamental.
Yes. So this is what we are doing now by this revamp of the minimum wages order. But we are doing more. We are doing more in that we are breaking ground in the region by removing discrimination as far as we are concerned in terms of wages between male and female. So we are equalizing the wage, the minimum wage across genders.
Across genders,
Right.
but
So-
also what about temporary workers? They also would benefit from the minimum wage negotiations.
Well, it depends on if what you define as a temporary worker. Because,
Well-
for example, we have a $60 proposal, is $60 a day,
Right.
but for a minimum of 5 hours. You must work for 5 hours in a day to be considered as having worked a day and therefore entitled to $60. So you can have
Minimum.
somebody, minimum, and that's another
Minimum
point we need
hours.
to make.
Yeah.
Minimum, the minimum wage is the basic sum that a person can be paid
Right.
either in a day, in which case it's $60, over a month, which is $1,200. Minimum doesn't mean that's the salary you
Right.
pay,
Okay.
right?
Of course,
You can
can be
pay
more,
higher,
but you
but
can't
not
go
less.
underneath
Right.
that.
But to go back to the temporary workers point you make, there is nothing that will affect people who work on a part-time or a temporary basis to negotiate a suitable wage for that work, which may not be as high as the minimum wage. So say, for example, you have somebody who comes to your house once a week
Right.
and they work for 2 hours. You can negotiate a reasonable sum to pay for that person
Right.
for that 2 hours, right? And it may be less than $60 because the other person is working for at least 5 hours for the
Yeah.
day to get 60.
Right.
So it doesn't mean, and
it's-
that's something we need to clarify.
some
It doesn't mean
negotiations.
that all domestics, whether you work 1 hour or 2 hours a day or a week, you're entitled to $1,200 a month. I think that's one of the things we
Yeah,
need to
to
clarify.
clarify, yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Okay?
Okay.
So it's either per month you're working the usual minimum 5 hours a day for a week.
Right.
That was what would qualify you for the 1,200.
So the minimum is 5, and what would be considered the maximum hours?
Well, in accordance with the labor code,
the labor
40-hour work week, you can't work for more than 40 hours.
Yeah.
Anything over that,
It's
you have to be paid
overtime. And that is just time and a half, or
Well, it depends. It
Yeah.
depends.
Okay.
It depends on if it's weekend, public holiday, and
double time.
also your specific contractual arrangements.
Okay. All right.
So we just want to make sure that the general public understand. First of all, there is not intended to be any sort of layoff, right? Any substantial or any amount of layoff. There should not be any increase in the price of goods and services because in most instances, the transportation sector, the construction sector, in some instances the agriculture sector too. What is happening is aligning the new minimum wage will actually be aligned with what the industry already offers.
Okay.
And again, employers and employees, this does not mean this is what you have to work for. As an employee, you can negotiate more. But what will happen if the employer pays you less than what the order says? He will be in contravention of the law. He'll be breaking the law.
Have you had any of these experiences so far where an employer?
No, it hasn't come. It hasn't
I know, but
come.
before.
Oh, before. Yeah, we have had some complaints come through the Ministry of Labor, and the key is to have workers know their rights.
Yeah.
Is to have workers know their rights, because it happens at all levels. We've had an instance where contractors were made to, workers were made to sign contracts to work 45 hours a week as opposed to 40, and they were not being paid overtime. Right? And so the Ministry of Labor had to intervene and insist that they work out the overtime that the workers accrued, and insist that the overtime be paid. So if you are made to work more than 40 hours a week without being paid overtime, the employer is breaking the law, and that's the basis on which you can complain to the Ministry of Labor, and we could rectify it. In most cases, the employers comply, they cooperate. Right? We do. I must say and thank the workers and the employers of this country. We are now enjoying a period of great industrial cooperation, collaboration, and peace. The likes of which we haven't seen in this country
for a long time.
Right?
And that certainly contributes to improved conditions throughout. Profit making and all that.
Another point I want to make to workers now. You have to give a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Right? You can't be demanding higher wages. You can't be demanding more fringe benefits. You can't be saying, well, you improve the minimum wages order, but we still want more. And everywhere we go, the issue of productivity comes up. Everywhere. Dr. Gilchrist could expound on it more. But everywhere we go, the question of productivity comes up. And even some of the employees admit they don't give a fair day's work, a fair day's pay. If we want our country to grow, if we want to be able to improve the minimum wages every 3 years, review it and adjust it upward, you got to produce. Because when you produce, your employer makes more money, and when he has more money, he can pay you more. So it's a cycle where you have to give and take. You can't scull the work. You can't short the employer on the job. You can't call in sick when you're really not sick. You can't be browsing Facebook and
there's a lot of complaints in that area.
YouTube, right? You can't be on YouTube and doing your working hours and then make demands for increase and all of this. Not fair. So we also have to produce if we want to build a productive country and a prosperous modern society. We got to work.
Absolutely, you gotta produce. They gotta be balanced. Well, we'll take a short break, and we're back in a moment.
This is WASH, the Water, Access and Sanitation in Homes program. An initiative that's changing lives, eliminating disparities, and building brighter futures. This groundbreaking program is the flagship initiative of nation builders and is aimed at providing clean water and proper sanitation facilities to those who need it. It's simple. We believe that clean water and sanitation are fundamental human rights. Therefore, we are committed to providing all households in Grenada with these necessities by 2027. The goals of WASH are clear and straightforward. 1. We will ensure that every home has access to indoor running water. 2. We will provide equitable sanitation systems like bathrooms to homes that don't currently have them. 3. We will end the use of open defecation facilities such as pit latrines. And finally, through these goals, we will enhance social comfort and improve environmental aesthetics. The WASH program found its start in Belle-Isle St. David, a close-knit community with unique challenges and potential. Belle is a picturesque place, but the socio-economic disparities are visible. Many homes in Belle lack access to basic amenities. In fact, our team identified 51 homes in the community that could benefit from our assistance. However, installing the necessary facilities can cost around 20,000 EC dollars per home. But with support from members of the private sector, we can make a significant impact, not just in Belle, but throughout Grenada, Caribou, and Pitima Inc. Join us in our mission to improve living conditions, promote well-being, and empower communities. WASH, clean water, happy homes, stronger communities.
You and those who are on the NDC Facebook platform, welcome back to the Heartbeat. Dr. Gilchrist, what do you think would be the national economic implication as a result of the wages implementation come January?
Yes, and very good question. There are some other the whole issue of poverty. Yeah, and what you would see is that adjustment put most people above the poverty line. Yeah, so it's the issue of addressing poverty. I know poverty eradication is one of the sustainable development goals.
Right.
So we are meeting our obligation there to eradicate poverty.
Okay.
Also, I believe from an economic standpoint, we are raising the value of the goods and services that we produce. Because our GDP right now is around gross domestic product, just around 3 billion. Yeah. But most economists will tell you that's an underestimation of our value. And you know, wages is a very big component of the cost of production and value add. So we will see our value being raised, and Grenada would not be considered one of the low economic in between the context of OECS. Yeah, if you look at Antigua, for example, they have a population of about maybe 70,000, but their GDP is almost 6 billion.
But then how do you correlate this now with respect to donor countries? Would they have the tendency to say, well, you're doing much better now, so you don't need much
yes, I know.
donations?
You're correct. It's what you call the per capita income is what they use to measure, classify.
Yeah.
You know, your level of economic development, and we are considered kind of lower middle income, but part of the formula too is the population size. Yeah, so we are hoping to get an increased population. Yeah, and that will cushion any increase in that per capita income and keep us at the same level.
Okay.
Yeah, but that poverty indicator, I think, is one of the objectives behind the minimum wage, raising people above that level of income. Yeah, that would have you to acquire a basic standard of living. Additionally, what we are doing is also within the spirit of the OECS, because St. Lucia right now, has also reconstituted a committee, wages advisory committee, to look at minimum wage. St. Vincent will be making an announcement when they have independence, I think in October. They'll make and so we have been speaking among ourselves in the region, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not just a Grenada thing.
Okay.
It's a regional effort to raise incomes, right? And also the productivity. And I just want to make a point about productivity. Well, next year, once we roll this out, that's where the conversation begins on encouraging productivity. Because in speaking to some of the employers, the issue is really supervision and management. Yeah? And we are hoping that across all sectors, there'll be training and supervisors in terms of putting in place performance management systems and supervision. So it's not giving someone a task and turn your back. We are humans. Supervision. So emphasis will be placed on training, in management and supervision, so that you help increase productivity. And other systems you have to put in place. And that's one of the problems we have nationally at that level. Even in public service, the whole issue of middle management needs to be strengthened. We talk a lot about the PS and the PS, but that second level has to be strengthened to raise the profile of productivity, and that is something we don't look at.
And I'm not too sure whether, if at all, there has been a consistent training program or
Yeah.
programs to really help strengthen that tier.
That here is
Yeah.
very, very important. We have seen that any effort in that regard, you will see improvements. I remember one year, even the Chamber of Commerce, they declare one year as a year of punctuality.
Hmm.
The link between punctuality and productivity is clear.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
clear. We have been speaking to the chamber, and most of our consultation were coordinated by the Chamber of Commerce. And we have indicated to them that we would want to engage them once we roll this thing out. And the whole idea of productivity and what, in collaboration with Michelle Labor, what can be done nationally to raise levels of productivity, yeah, both on the employer and the employee side.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a conversation you would see being prominent in 2024.
And would that be tied in now to improve ground transportation? Because many a times, sometimes you can't get a bus. You can't get a seat on the bus because you're full already, and these sort of challenges.
well-
Everything is now interrelated with respect to punctuality.
Right. So you're economist, right? You're economist because what happens? You talk about the market, and if the demand is there, a supply will emerge.
Yep.
A supply will emerge. People are looking for business opportunities. So once demand is there, we anticipate the supply coming to being, right? If not, then that's where the state will intervene.
Yep.
The state will have to intervene to ensure that development takes place. If people working all these other can't get, then the government will have to do something
Yeah.
to push and encourage. And you know what has been happening for small countries? It's unfortunate. The government has to take the bigger role in pushing development because we have a small private sector. So I'm hoping that we will monitor the situation, and of course, if there's not a private sector response, then the state may have to look at how it would respond to encourage the private sector or go into partnership with them to encourage that, meeting that demand. Yeah, but that is expected.
Yeah, because I heard Prime Minister on one occasion talk about electric buses, electric vehicles, which would help with the transportation aspect and forging some sort of relationship with the bus associations to improve the whole aspect of transportation. Because late at night, you can't get a bus from St. George's to Grenville. And these are important factors in the overall scheme of economic development of the country.
Yeah. Of course, you are correct. But we have a small economy, so it's a matter of scale, and that's where partnership comes in to take care of scale, right, and size, right, so that you cover your cost of operation.
Yep.
Because whether you take a small bus or a big bus, there are certain costs that are fixed.
Basic.
So I think I look forward to that kind of market interaction and see what happens. And we'll be monitoring as we put the minimum wage into effect. We'll be monitoring and see what adjustments need to be made, what government has to do, in terms of the environment, creating an environment to allow businesses to emerge, as in response to that market adjustments. And we are hoping employers would also monitor and pay attention.
Yeah.
Because when we started consultation, not many people were paying attention, but I can tell you, at a certain point, massive interest because it affects them.
Yep.
Yeah, and they have to monitor what's going on. And I'm very pleased to see the interest shown by employers and employees on the minimum wage. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the conversation continues.
So the minimum wage will take effect, is it from the 1st January or from the 30th of January
They should
next year?
administer that.
Okay, so
I can answer that.
I'll go over to Minister. In other words, that question is way above your pay grade.
That's about my opinion.
So, Minister, back to you. We are giving your throat a little rest.
Yes, thank you.
So, the minimum wage negotiations is to now take effect beginning or end of January next year?
The intention is for the new minimum wages to come into effect on 1st January 2020.
1st January.
So we are working with the Wages Advisory Committee, fine-tuning the report submitted, engaging now in the second round of consultations with stakeholders, and after which, after we've had the final report, the cabinet will again, because it went to cabinet once before,
Right.
and the whole idea was to let's do some more consultations. Right? So once those are complete, they are almost completed. We have at least one or two national ones to do. And once those are done, we will again consider the report at the cabinet level. And then the rest would be up to me as Minister of Labour to have the order itself amended, duly amended,
Right.
and brought into force. So the intention is to have that done before the end of the year, so have the order published and so before the end of 2023,
Right.
and with an effective date of January 1st, 2024.
Right.
So because we know in this period, most employers are working on the 2024 budgets, including government as an employer. So the employers have to know how to budget for wages in 2024, which is why we are sharing the information even at this stage, and letting them know that the intention is for it to come into effect on 1st January, so that it's well budgeted for.
Psychologically, to the business community, there will be additional spending come Christmas. Which people are anticipating more revenue, more bigger salary
Okay, well, again,
come January.
Again, I increase in January. I could make
So then the business community
Christmas.
is a win-win situation for them.
Increase your circulation of money.
Yeah,
Circulation of money, because you're going
More
to see some
spending.
people take a little loan, I
Of
think, for
course.
Christmas. Or
Again,
spending a little
$400 more come in
because,
January.
Right, I get
I can spend more.
I get a raise in January.
Yeah,
too.
naturally so indeed.
Because we really are working to build a robust and thriving economy here in Grenada. We believe we have what it takes, but we have to bring all the pieces together and have everything work in a synergistic way,
Right.
so as to ensure that our people are thriving, businesses are thriving, our economy is doing well, people are paying their taxes. Because if people are doing well, businesses doing well, and individuals doing well, and they're not giving Caesar his share, then
of course.
Caesar out in the cold air. So the government also has to be doing well, and government derives revenue from
of course.
taxation. That's
But
a standard economic
the
principle.
the psychological benefit to all of this is that you will be spending less on healthcare services.
Well,
Because if people are feeling happy, they get less sick, less demands on the hospital. So when you really look at it in a global
we are really
perspective,
trying to look at it
it
in a
will
global
lower
way.
your healthcare costs.
And at the same time, we are working feverishly as a team to improve on the healthcare services in Grenada. The NDC in office in 2010, 2011 started the NHI conversation.
That's great.
Unfortunately, those who took over for the 10 years that followed didn't advance it much. It's something we have again taken up, and we expect and trust that the Canadian people will give us enough time
to
deliver on these
because
things.
already I have seen
Some of them can't be done in one term.
no, of course not.
I'm making my picture ready right here now.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of it cannot be done.
Because
So
I see
we
the
have to
scale model of the hospital already being circulated.
Yeah, so
Scale model. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
so-
looking very
for
attractive.
the teaching hospital, that is, well, as you know, we've made arrangements to acquire 89.3 acres of land in Calvini. That is already under contract, and we are moving forward to closing that shortly.
Yeah.
Prime Minister, I'm already busy in the
Well.
chamber.
Can well imagine. I mean,
So-
so much has been
so
happening in this year and a
healthcare,
few months.
And all of these NHI, all of these things, a lot of positive changes with the national insurance scheme. And I'll tell you what, some of these changes you see that are coming on board with the NIS right? The unemployment benefit, the adjustment in the retirement age, the sickness benefit improvement, a whole slew of them. These are matters that the actuaries have been saying to the previous government for at least 12, 13 years. You need to do this, or else the NIS will run out of funds in 2035. You need to, So these things are matters that have been flagged for a long time and not attended to, even though they will obviously be in the best interest of the people.
Yep.
So it really, really makes you wonder. But we are trying to work for the people. So you see all the various amendments to the NIS, they have been promoting the changes, and so all of those things we will work together cumulatively to enhance the lives of our people.
Absolutely, so indeed. Well, time really flies.
Oh, it does.
And it really does. So before it runs out on us, give us some of the nuts and bolts of the negotiations that has led to the successful conclusion of the Kawana Bay issue, which was in ICSID, the International Court for Investment Dispute.
Right. So let me just say, the settlement of the ICSID arbitration related to Kawana Bay is something that needed to happen, but it's also something that happened in a wider context. We are serious about protecting and preserving our assets and patrimony, not just for this generation, not just for us, but for those who are to come after us, because we are intent on leaving a better Grenada than we found.
Great.
So in that regard, we have taken a decision to go back to the principle that former governments held. Eric Gary, the PRG, the governments immediately after the PRG, that no property in our prime tourist areas and certain prime areas around Grenada should be alienated, should be sold.
Right.
Rather, they should be leased and forever belong to the people, so that the people who lease them pay a rent to the people. And if they do not do what they say they would do under the lease, the government could get out and get investors who can.
Yep.
So in that regard, we have acquired again the Radisson property, that's 20.4 acres. It now belongs to the people. We have acquired a smaller piece of land behind, in the process of acquiring a smaller piece of land behind umbrellas.
Right.
And we have acquired the Kawana Bay property, which is just about 5 acres. That in that suit that they brought against the government of Grenada, we know what happened. There was a unpleasant falling out, and some unkind stuff was said in the parliament and all of that. And they sued the people of Grenada for $137.8 million US. That was the suit. I made a mistake at the press conference and I said 111, but it was actually 137.8.
$137.8 million US.
$0.8 million US. That suit did not include anything to do with the property itself because they owned it freehold.
Yeah.
We were able to negotiate with them so that they discontinue their suit against us. So the suit is now finished. It's discontinued. It doesn't go anywhere anymore. And we get the property back from them for $22 million.
Right.
So we avoided facing $137 million judgment, and we got back our property.
So I guess
I don't know who in their right head could say that is not a good deal.
And I guess probably the quantum of the suit could have probably rested on futures like economic earnings, futuristically.
Once a judgment is obtained against a state out in the international courts, there are different ways that it can be enforced.
Yeah.
So sums to which government might have been entitled to out there could have been garnished in the court out there. So rather than the funds coming to Grenada, it goes to the creditor, and the people don't see it at all. That's how you enforce international judgment. So you
Yeah.
garnish it out there.
We have had this problem with Taiwan many years
right.
ago.
So the money wasn't even reaching here.
Mhm.
It was being collected out there to satisfy the debt. We were not interested in engaging in that level of contention
Mhm.
with investors. One, it sends a bad message
Yep.
to foreign investors out there in terms of what kind of people we are in terms of investment and our treatment of foreign investors,
Right.
which we're not. And two, it's a major distraction.
Mhm.
It's a major distraction when we have to focus on building a country, building a better Grenada for all. And we have to divert our energies to defend a 127 million suit, which to my mind, which to our mind made no real sense. It wasn't born out of any genuine dispute that could not have been resolved
Absolutely.
with mutually respectful negotiations. It didn't have to get to exit if it had been attended to in a mutually respectful way. So we are very pleased. Our negotiations with Mr. Newfield and his team were very respectful, very cordial.
Well,
We all walked away, everybody happy.
just stick
And-
one pin, Minister, if you don't mind. What we'll do, because I need to drill down a little further into this, but we have run out of time. So we will continue.
Okay.
But let me just say goodbye to those who are on WeFM, Vibes FM, Spice Capital Radio. Thank you for joining the Heartbeat today. And please join us on the NDC online platform. We will be continuing this conversation with the Minister and Attorney General here, Claudia Joseph, and joined by Dr. Curlin Gilchrist. So join us again, those who are listening on radio, next Sunday. So we were talking about Kowanabe. The negotiations, you want to share with us a little bit, because in the minds of some folks, how could it be over $100 million and you only get it for 22? What sort of magic went on there?
Mutual respect. I think very good negotiating on the part of government. We had a good negotiating team, and it was, I would say, negotiated in two layers. So as Prime Minister indicated, we started off the negotiation with a team led by Mr. Richard Duncan, and including Miss Leslie Ancion, Mr. Henry Joseph, and Mr. Hassan Hadid. And I was there in between at that level.
Giving guidance.
Yeah, and then after a certain point, the negotiations were taken over by myself and advisor to the Prime Minister, Miss Andrea St. Bernard, mainly. And when it was time to really close and seal the deal, of course, Prime Minister came in to help us finalize. But it was a collective effort.
Yeah.
It was really a collective effort. And as I said, I think on the part of the True Blue Development Company, their principal, Mr. Newfield, I think he was really hurt with how he was treated.
Yeah.
He was really hurt with how he was treated, and the unfortunate statements that were made in our hallowed House
racist,
of Parliament.
Very racist.
Outright
statement.
racist. And
Really,
xenophobic.
really embarrassing for Grenada.
Yeah, so, but I think in treating with True Blue Development Company, and they realized that this is not who we are. So really, we did. It was a lot of tough negotiating, but it was always respectful and reasonable. So
Right.
both sides in negotiating, you give and take. Both sides give and take, and none of us wanted to be engaged in a protracted,
Right.
contentious litigation. Mr. Newfield is a businessman and investor. What he wants to go about his life and do other stuff, and government likewise want to move on and focus. we need to see movement on the property. We can just have the property sitting there
Right.
while this arbitration go on, and perhaps for at least another 2 or so years. And also on both sides, it was quite expensive. Being at ICSID, litigating matters at ICSID is an expensive enterprise.
I seem to recall the Grenelec legal expenses.
So there was that.
Huge.
Yeah, there was that consideration on both sides, both for Mr. Newfield and his companies and for Grenada.
Right.
On both sides. So it was in our mutual interest to work to resolve the matter.
Right. So
Which
I
we did.
imagine probably a recent re-evaluation of the property was done in order to arrive at its value and to
Yeah.
get to that
But
settlement.
I'll say too, as is common with these types of negotiations, the details are confidential matters. That's normal.
Yeah,
You will
that's-
find a clause in all the agreements saying that the agreement itself is
Non-disclosure, etc.
it's confidential. Just to, for the integrity of the whole process and everything. So the details, as the agreement says, it's a confidential matter. But I think both sides did a good job negotiating in their interest. And what was key is that we looked at the overall picture, because Mr. Newfield wants to actually see the project come to fruition, because he was very invested in it
Yep. Yeah, I could well
personally
imagine.
as an accomplishment, and so he actually wants to see the project come to realization, not sitting there wasting away. And nobody in Grenada wants to see the property just sitting there
Yep.
with not deteriorating. So that was one thing we had in common. What we did is that we looked for the stuff we had in common. None of us wanted to continue to have to spend vast sums of money to advocate our respective cases.
Right.
Right. So we had quite a few things in common. We want to see the project open. We don't want to be continuing to spend all this money necessary to defend our respective position. We want to move on with our lives. We want to do other stuff. And I think in general, there was a sense of both of us also wanting what's good for Grenada, what's best for Grenada. So on behalf of the people of Grenada, government and people of Grenada, I would, as Attorney General, like to thank Mr. Newfield and his team
Right.
for the manner in which the negotiations were conducted. Even loose ends that to be tied up. We're working together to do these things. So I think at the end of the day, Grenada got a good deal out of it. We got back the freehold,
Right.
because remember the case that was brought against us, 137.8 million. That didn't involve the property.
That's just
For the wrong that the company said was done to them.
Right.
This is what it cost them, right? So they gave up a lot. In settling, they gave up a lot because they own the property.
That's right.
They could have
Freehold.
said, they could have said, we settle in with you, give us 22 million, but we keep in our property.
Yeah,
They could have said that, but they
absolutely.
didn't. Right?
Wow.
They said, here's the property.
That was quite an
Yeah.
accomplished deal.
Here's the property. And give us 22 million, and we're gone.
Wow. So they handed over everything, the real estate, everything.
Right, the property.
Wow.
Yeah. So we are now to find a developer to complete,
Right.
and we're in the process of doing
So
it.
Mr. Newfield is now completely out of the picture with respect to
To
development.
the development, yes. Yes.
So he has washed his hands, shake hands, and said
Yeah.
goodbye.
But he's done it in a very gentlemanly way, and I think
Yeah.
he conducted himself with great decorum in light, especially considering how badly he was treated.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
And so we wish him well. And I know based on the tone on which we ended the negotiation, I'm sure we can have a conversation with him.
All right,
You
so
know,
we
in
know.
case if there's anything in relation to the property, we need to speak to him. It's ended on that tone, so
Right.
he's still somebody you can pick up the phone and have a conversation with. And we are grateful for that, because he was really put off by how he was treated.
Yeah, no, I can. That was sad. Very, very sad.
But I think now he knows that's not Grenada.
Yep.
He was just dealing with a few people.
Yeah.
But that's not us.
What was even sad is that that statement was made in our honorable parliament.
Yes. And
And,
if you pull the case, the exit claim that he filed, that featured very heavily.
Yeah.
So we were not looking good.
No, not at all. I
Yeah,
mean,
that featured very heavily.
In the international court, that could be a separate case of racist conduct by a head of state. Well, not a head of state, but by a prime minister.
Yeah.
Thank God that this is now all over and done with. And
So the key is, Grenada, we are reclaiming your patrimony as we promised we would while in opposition, and we are going to protect it, as Prime Minister said. When we are done, we are going to be tabling legislation in Parliament,
Yep.
which will make it difficult in the future for governments to alienate the people's patrimony. We got to do that, so
Yep.
that they would have to come, before doing so, come back to the Parliament or comply with a written law that the public will be well aware of. So there will be no deals, secret deals in the night. There will be no deals going down less than 24 hours before an election, which is what happened with the Radisson property.
Yep.
Right? So there will be none of that, right? When we have settled and we've acquired all these properties back for the people, we're going to be passing law. And yes, we're going to be leasing to developers, but developers will be held to account and to comply with their obligations. So you're not going to be getting a lease that says you're going to build a hotel, and 40 years later the hotel isn't there and you still have the property.
So in other words,
That's not going to be happening in the future.
in your leases in the future, you'll have like a performance clause. If you don't do this, this is what will happen.
Yeah, we tighten up on what
Yeah.
how we
Put it
lease,
on the
how we
grips.
lease the properties, and ensure that developers and investors do what they say they're gonna do. And if they don't, if they don't,
Consequences.
we have a mechanism to get back the property, because we're not giving freehold.
Right.
You see, the thing with freehold, you own the property, you can sell
Yeah,
it to who
that's
you
it.
want. And when you sell, when you give freehold, the freehold owner could sell it to anybody
Yep.
from wherever.
And you can't demand that he
it's-
develops
yeah,
it.
and then it alienates further and further away from the people.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. That's not how areas like Grandans and so should be treated with.
Yeah.
But if you have a
Absolutely.
leasehold, you own it. You remain the owner. And the person leasing, they can develop it for 9 to 9 years. They can even get an option to renew,
Yeah.
and they pay you rent.
Yep.
So the country constantly gets revenue from the property.
Yep. Definitely so indeed. Well, this has certainly made it much clearer to our audience out there. But again, well, time is always the issue. So let me ask Dr. Gilchrist to give us his parting word and to share with us
Well,
what the future holds.
Well, I have different hats, but I'll stay with the minimum wage. See that the conversation continues, and the public can look forward to later on. We'll have a national one, and call Ministry of Labor if they have any recommendation, suggestion. Just call the Ministry of Labor, and we'll be there shortly to attend to them. Yeah. So we look forward to continuing the engagement and bringing this to a conclusion for
Right.
the benefit of the entire country.
So workers throughout the length and breadth of Grenada can now feel a sense of joy. That come January 24, at least the majority of workers will have an increase in wages.
Yeah, and I like your statement because you appear to be biblical when you speak about happiness and health.
Oh yeah, it's all interrelated.
Solomon did say that that laughter is medicine,
It is.
right? So I must say
It is indeed.
you're on point there.
Very well, absolutely. The happier you make a people, then the less they have to pay hospital bills.
You are on point there. So that's it.
Yeah, well, Minister, we're coming to another close of another Heartbeat program. So, your final words to our listeners and viewers.
Well, thank you again, Terry, and I wish all the viewers and listeners a happy, healthy, and productive week ahead. And just to remind you that we are here working for you. You have a very committed team headed by a very intelligent and sensitive Prime Minister. And so we enjoy working for the people of Grenada. We work well together.
Yep.
We support each other. So I just want to confirm and reassure to all of the people of Grenada that your future is placed right now in the right hands. And whatever we do it in the best interest of the people of Grenada. And we do it in partnership with the people of Grenada, which is why we take time to do all these public engagements, all these consultations. We'll be continuing with our town hall meetings, our community meetings, and so, because we get the best advice and guidance from you, the people, when we engage. So let us keep working hand in hand, and let's look forward to a memorable and magnificent 50th anniversary of independence.
Yes.
We are going to be celebrating for, well, we say a year, but it's actually more than a year, because it's October 19, 2023 to March, I think it's March 30th, 2020, March 30th, 2024. So it's more than a year.
Yeah.
And so we encourage all of Grenada to get involved and to plan community activities to commemorate the independence celebration. So
Great.
we look forward to growing together and building a better Grenada.
Thank you so very much indeed. Well, and thank you, the listeners and viewers of the Heartbeat today, and join us again next Sunday when we'll do it all over again. But before I close, let me just remind you of one or two announcements here. Of course, Minister for the Thomas St. George wants to remind you to come and get your breakfast next Saturday morning, very early on the carnage. Don't miss it. And Minister for Education, the Honorable David Andrew, is informing all his constituents that his constituency day has changed from Wednesday to Thursdays now. So he apologizes for any inconvenience which you may have as a result of this change. But remember, it's on Thursdays, as from Thursday coming. Then, oh yeah, let me share this one with you. I'll do something rather creative. Let's see if I can get it correct. Okay, so you got it. So all of you who have friends and relatives in the UK coming out to the Prime Minister's Gala, 4th November, that is this year, and be part of the exciting moment up there. Also, New York, the NDC New York chapter is having a town hall meeting on Sunday, October 8th. It will be held at the American Legion Hall, 1130 East 92nd Street, Brooklyn, New York. If you wish to make contact, all right, I'll give you the contact number in the other flyer, because they're also having the National Democratic Congress 36th year of existence, and celebrate with the New York chapter. They'll be having an awards fundraising cocktail reception on Saturday, October 7th and that's from 9 p.m. And it will be held at the Palace Hall, 713 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. If you're interested in tickets, it's 347-432-6963 or 347-722-5180. So these are the announcements for today. So catch up with you again next week, Sunday. Do have a great Sunday afternoon. Until, goodbye.